In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5, high buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. Yo, it's game day, stadium packed, feel that rush. From Boise to App State, man, we never hush. Rocking the colors, yeah, we bleed that pride. Cinderella stories, watch our dreams collide. Late nights, bright lights, we grind every play. Underrated talent, we gon' make them say, who's that team when we come to town? Representing for the schools that wear the crown. We in the G5, high buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. We the ones they are. The ones they can't skip. Fighting for respect, it's a tough road ahead. But we pack that heart and we never dread. Late hits and big plays, we bring in the heat. Watch out for the G5, we can't be beat. From the MAC to the Sun Belt, we don't back down. In this football jungle, we wear the crown. All the doubt is sleeping, but we making noise. In the G5 Hive, we the realest boys. When the clock's ticking down, we the ones to believe. One play, one chance, we gon' make them achieve. From the sidelines to the end zone, hear that roar. In the G5 Hive, we always wanting more. We in the G5 Hive, buzzing loud, we thrive. Underdogs rising up, taking shots, we alive. From the mountains to the coast, we gon' bring that fire. In the heart of college football, we the ones they admire. So raise your flags high, let them wave in the air. In the G5 Hive, we the squad that's rare. With heart and grit, we rewriting the script. In the world of college football, we the ones they can't skip. Yeah.
Here's Navarro on the run. Navarro's going to keep it. Navarro for 6! Touchdown, Bobcat!
I feel I had a hard time staying in my own lane.
Oh my goodness! Red Murdoch! Pick 6! Harvath inside the 30 to 20. Blake Harvath will score! And Mendoza takes a big hit. He never saw it coming. Trey White got in there. There's his man, Rucker. And nobody's going to catch him. Goodbye. Intercepted. Tyree Skipper. Touchdown.
Telly again, why not? A step forward and make it 2 for Telly.
Quarterback keeper showing off the speed. Steps on the gas. Untouched.
The G5 Hive. All G5 all the time.
Welcome to the G5 Hive Live. We're excited to bring you the G5 coverage of each and every week. I am Luke, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justice. We've got a third person on the screen today, Andrew Katz from Burning the Red Shirt podcast. Welcome.
Can you hear us, Andrew?
Is my internet off? Turn my camera off or something.
It looks like you froze up, but maybe you're with us now.
Try turning my camera off.
Well, if you are watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're watching us on X, please give us a follow, a like, and a retweet. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. The G5 Hive merchandise store is now live. Link in the YouTube video comments, as well as pinned on our X page and at the bottom of the screen here. Gentlemen,
What's going on?
2025. I mean, football, did we ever
Spring-
end? I'm not sure.
Spring practice is starting. The Hawaii started spring practice last week. It looks like Andrew froze out. He'll jump back in.
We've got Liberty coming up. I mean,
yeah, it seems like football just ended, right? Like the national championship game was what, like I don't know, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and here we are. Thank you guys. We're live. We're doing it on a Saturday. Usually we're doing it Monday nights at 10:30. But Andrew Katz wanted to join, and we wanted him to be a part of it. So we're being a little agile this week, and we're back to being live. We've had 3 weeks off. We had 2 recorded shows, part of the NIL and house settlement talk. We had 2 great guests. One with Sam Houston Collective, and the other with Ascension Sports. I don't know if you call them agency or whatnot, but we had 2 great guests to give unique perspectives on NIL and what's going on and what they're doing day to day, week to week in their circles. And then we just had a week off in between there. So we're back. We took our break. Billy, Tuesday, you have a national championship. I'm surprised you haven't changed that avatar to being something national championship. Congratulations. We felt pretty good about it. I know you were nervous, but Billy Tuesday back in the house.
Yeah, if you haven't caught those 2 episodes, I would certainly recommend you and watch them in order. Part 1 with Ben Searles of the Cat Fund Collective, the Sam Houston collective there. He we went over the history of like way back when, how this whole NIL stuff kind of started. It went over the history of the house settlement and the revenue sharing. And then part 2, we talked to Coach Shane Burnham, a former FCS, FBS Division I head coach, or not head coach, I'm sorry, assistant coach. He was, I believe, defensive coordinator, and now he's the football director for Ascension Sports, which is a management company, if you will. And so just kind of different perspectives, from him, both as a coach and being on the other side now, representing players, and then getting the thoughts of Ben from a collective's perspective. So yeah, part 1 and part 2, I definitely, if you haven't watched them, watch them in order. Watch part 1. They're both up on our YouTube page, as well as wherever you listen to podcasts. It's like Andrew's still having some issues with his video. He's trying to jump in, but I don't see him yet. I see like he's in the room, but I don't know if he's having. There we go. Let's see.
Hey man, yeah, I don't know if I should risk having my camera on because my internet seems a little spotty, but we'll see how it goes. Let's do it.
All right. Yeah, look, you froze up for a minute. It looks like everything's good and working now. So.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have had 30 browsers open.
Hey man, that's my life on a daily basis. Yeah, it doesn't. But yeah, it doesn't. 30 tabs open in Chrome isn't good for the computer process.
How new is the song at the beginning?
We came up with that somewhere during the season.
Yeah.
AI wrote it. I had AI. Like I came up with the lyrics, and then I had AI do that song.
That's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah,
it's crazy what AI can do. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was like, I don't know, week 4, week 5 of the season or something. Around there, I want to say, is when I did it on AI, and we kind of unveiled it, if you will. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. News and notes. Nothing. Not a lot of news. Like I said, we're going to cover the transfer portal stuff, kind of each conference by conference. But as we mentioned in the opening, Hawaii opened spring practice this week. They opened up practice Monday, February 3rd. And then their spring game, I believe, is March 8th. Let's see. They're not March 9th. March 9th is their spring game. And oddly enough, they're not the first spring game. Liberty, who starts practice on Wednesday of this coming week, so February 12th, their spring game is actually a week earlier. The spring game is on March 1st, even though they don't actually technically end practice until the 8th. It's a kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe they just wanted to be first, I guess. And with the spring game, so those two programs are underway or will be underway this week with spring practices. And last piece of news: JMU has hired Colin Hitchler as their new defensive coordinator. Hitchler most recently was Alabama's co-defensive coordinator, safeties coach, but he was fired after one season at Alabama. Prior to Alabama, he was a co-DC at Wisconsin. I think he also had a stop at Cincinnati as well. This move reunites Hitchler with head coach Bob Chesney. The two worked together in 2011 at Salve Regina University. I don't even know, like, that must be like Division III or something. But yeah, new defensive coordinator for JMU. So let's get to the main topic. Why Andrew's here, why you all are joining us, and that's the American Athletic Conference. We're going to talk about the transfer portal. We'll talk about any coaching changes. Now, we're not going to do our quote deep dive into coaching changes. We will do like a deeper dive with some of these changes, particularly offensive coordinators at a later date. But we're going to talk about them, what we think. We'll talk about who left in the portal, who came in the portal. We'll talk about players out of eligibility and just kind of talk about our way too early general outlook for these teams. We'll start off with the Army Black Knights, the champions, 2025-2024 champions of the American Athletic Conference, their first year in the American Athletic Conference. And what we got for coaching changes, Luke?
Well, Army went 12-2. Coaching changes, none. No coaching changes. Head coach Jeff Monken will go into his 12th season as head coach of Army. Offensive coordinator Cody Worley will be in his second season after a great first year there, and DC Nate Woody will be in his sixth season.
And when we talk about coaching changes, we're only talking about head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator.
You're not counting the O-line?
No.
The O-line coach left, yeah. He's now the head coach at Central Michigan, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So there might be coaching changes, but for the purposes of what we're talking about today, we're talking about the head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Transfer portal, not a big deal, and well, generally not a big deal for your academies because they don't usually leave. The guys don't leave very often. If guys are gonna leave, the time they're gonna do it, which is what we saw. And the one case is after their sophomore year. Once they start their junior year, then it becomes a lot tougher for them to get out of the academies. They have to honor their commitments to the military, and then some financial stuff, and so it just becomes. It's very rare for someone to leave after their sophomore year.
Is that how it works? I've always kind of wondered how bound they are to the academy, because Kanye, I'm sure we're going to get to him, right? So was he a true sophomore?
He was a true sophomore.
What about, and I guess the only other transfer I can remember recently, the Navy fullback who went to WKU, right? I guess maybe he was an underclassman too at the time, but
there was a receiver
Oh yeah,
last
the guy,
that
yeah.
went, but he left afterwards. So he's got to pay money back to the academy, and he might still have commitments as far as like service commitments to do because he left after his sophomore year.
That's
But
crazy.
yeah, that's the rule. It's if you're gonna do it, you got to do it before you enroll in your junior year.
I don't have the honor and privilege of owning Paul Skeens in any baseball leagues, but I would like to see him get drafted to the Air Force so that my opponents can't own him in fantasy baseball.
But yeah, so sophomore year, that's kind of the point when you see athletes in the academies if they're going to do it. That's really when they're going to do it. And as far as who Army does lose, they did lose a big piece in the portal, and that's running back Kanye Udo. He is off to Arizona State. He's really the only portal guy that they lose. But they do have quite a guys out of eligibility. Quarterback Bryson Daly, who was our AAC Offensive Player of the Year, out of eligibility. Safety Max DiDomenico is out of eligibility, and probably a bigger concern, or maybe the biggest concern, would be offensive line. They lose their top 7 offensive linemen based on snap count, all out of eligibility. We saw how impactful that was for Air Force last year. Air Force, they lost more than just O line, but they lost a lot of returning production at Air Force, and our Army is going to go through that at least on the offensive line, and so that could have some impact in terms of what we expect for Army in 2025. I mean, I think that academies handle that stuff a lot better than traditional schools, right? But still, losing 7 offensive linemen, your top 7, that's still a big blow. And you could see kind of like Air Force, it felt like it took them half the season before, or maybe the last, I don't know, third of the season or so before they kind of got in a groove. And maybe you can see that same thing happen with Army. I think a lot of folks just assume, hey, they did so great last year, they're going to do great again. But having to replace quarterback, your main tailback, and all those offensive linemen, I think it could be a rough start for Army.
And something that the service academies get to do, though, is that at their satellite bases, they pretty much kind of start to groom the players. Where as freshmen and sophomores, because it's really hard to crack the lineup as a freshman, you have to be really good, and we've seen Kanye Udo do that. But then they'll get the playbook, and then they'll play against JUCO and community colleges, and they'll play against there. So they're still getting a lot of reps, which is different than other colleges around football where it's like, hey, you're not getting the starter reps, and this is a little bit different. So maybe that that's kind of what we saw there with Air Force, is maybe that transition, to getting reps against JUCO and community college players versus other D1 players. A little bit different there.
Yeah, I mean, Dwayne Coleman, I guess, is the next man up at quarterback. But I don't pretend to expect the same amount of production that we saw out of Bryson Daly from Dwayne Coleman.
I have some overarching thoughts, I guess. So the Air Force, the way Air Force kind of played out, I think in 2024, I don't think you can chalk it up entirely to like returning production. I think that there was a lot of identity stuff going on, trying to figure out what they want to, if they want to vary their scheme or if they had the personnel to actually run the scheme that they've historically done in an effective way. It's weird that it took them so long to kind of figure out, oh, maybe we should just do option-y type stuff and I forget who the fullback is, who we all liked in the preseason.
Dylan Carson.
I know he got hurt for a while, but like, all right, maybe we just give the fullback a bunch of carries and just play downhill football and like do our thing. It was nice when they finally figured it out, but you would think, I know Army's messed around with their offensive scheme in recent years too, but it feels like they have a good thing going in that regard. Additionally, the AAC, I think overall is like sneakily outside of Army. Like any week, you're going to have multiple matchups in this league that are likely to just blow the top off of and just shoot out like 40 plus points on either side. It's great. I like that. The league, I think that league and the Mountain the Mountain West is kind of trending in that direction as well, which is awesome because I think that both these leagues, both of those leagues, like were not necessarily like that offensively prone in recent years, but like in 2024 in the AAC, we had UAB having no interest in playing defense, Tulsa being a disaster on defense. Tulane kind of mucked things up as well, but like even Navy was getting in shootouts a bunch of the time. So it's a fun league. I'm hoping it stays that way. I don't want any of these teams getting any ideas about playing defense. What does Army do in terms of bringing back stuff on the defensive side?
I mean, really, it's just Max DiDomenico is really the only big loss.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think they're going to be better defensively. They do return Hayden Reed, who was the running back that kind of took over. Udo did not play in the bowl game, right? So it was Daly and Hayden Reed. Reed returned. So now I think you're going to see Dwayne Coleman and Hayden Reed kind of lead the offensive side. But I think the defense will be the strength of the team, at least initially, right? Until they can, kind of see how things shake out along that offensive line. But I mean, their defense wasn't bad last year.
No, it was good. Yeah.
It was one of the better defenses in the AAC, and I think that will continue. Losing DiDomenico, it'll hurt a little bit, but he's really the only player of significance that they lose. They had two outstanding cornerbacks. They had Elo Mendoza, probably their top edge rusher. He returned. So yeah, I think defensively, I think they're going to be fine. I think the biggest question mark for me with them is that offensive line and how they'll come together, at least early on in the season.
I've got another name that I'm really interested in at running back. He didn't play at all, but I'm really interested to see. I want this to be all right. This is the first time we're hearing this name. Maybe actually probably second time if you listen to our Worker Bee series last year. Will Stallings. Will Stallings last year was a true freshman, 6 foot, 222 pounds, had offers obviously at Army, but he had offers from Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, UNLV, San Diego State. Like, there's some good offers in there, and I didn't even list all of them. But that could be a sneaky name that I'm curious if we're going to hear his name when we do our Worker Bee series this summer.
Yeah, they, like I said, offense. They got a lot of production to have to replace there, losing Bryson Daly and Kanye Udo. All right, let's move over to the Charlotte 49ers. We lose Biff. No more Biff.
We got sleeves back. Sleeves are coming back. Short sleeves, long sleeves. All the sleeves are back. Charlotte 5-7 last year. Biff Poggi out after 2 seasons. Bring in Tim Albin as the new head coach in from the Ohio Bobcats. He brings offensive coordinator Todd Fitch, who is the 2024 LSU offensive analyst. He was also an offensive analyst in 2021 through 2023 with Ohio State. So that means Mike Miller was out after 2 seasons there. And then Ryan Osborne was the DC for the last 2 seasons. He is out. And Nate Fans, member of the Ohio staff from 2016 to 2024, serving in many different roles, defensive grad assistant from 2016 to 2018, linebacker coach 2019 to 2023, and special teams coordinator also in conjunction with that linebacker coach in 2020 through 2023. He is now the co-DC in 2020, and he was the co-DC in 2024. He now takes over defensive coordinator duties there at Charlotte.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think, to see how Tim Albin was successful at Ohio, but he doesn't bring Brian Smith with him. Brian Smith stays at Ohio, gets the job. Didn't bring a lot of players with him either. Ohio didn't lose very many guys in the portal, and there was only a handful. I think there's only one maybe that followed him over to Charlotte. It was a backup guy.
Do you buy in? So I can't remember if we've discussed this at all, but I theorize that the reason the offense was successful is basically like they hired Smith over from Hawaii, right? And he made that offense go. It was stuck in the mud. It was doing nothing. He kind of brought some actual creativity to it. Obviously, he doesn't come here now. He's the head coach at Ohio, but that to me is, I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it in terms of this offense. I know there's tons of turnover, like which I'm sure we'll talk about momentarily at Charlotte from a player standpoint. But this offense was dreadful last year. So it's not like he's working with a foundation, right? And the what made his offenses work at Ohio, I think, was Brian Smith. So I'm interested to see kind of what things look like in year one.
Yeah, I don't know that I tend to agree with you. That I don't know how. Man, I think he will be okay there. I don't know that in today's age, I don't know that he'll be given the time that he will need in order to make Charlotte into a winning program. People's patience is not nowadays. Like you used to think like a coach gets at least 3 years, right? 3-4 years. But we're seeing like coaches getting 1 or 2 seasons and that's it. And I don't know how patient they'll be with Albin. Biff only got 2 years. So and like you said, it's a lot of changeover in personnel that they lost and a lot of new personnel coming in. And yeah, I don't know. Charlotte, it's not like Charlotte has a great history to draw upon or anything like that. And so, I mean, if he's going to be successful, I think it's going to take time. I just don't know that in today's age, and the patience that the fan bases and the athletic directors show are going to afford Albin the time.
Yeah, he also puts himself under my own personal microscope by bailing on Ohio, not even riding the bus back with the team after shipping the MAC championship, and just a real scumbag way to go out. Like you're not, dude. People don't forget, like that is now part of his identity, and like that is at the top of his resume in my book until he proves me otherwise.
Yeah, you kind of saw it with 2 coaches, right? Charles Huff at Marshall and Albin at Ohio. They win the championship at their old jobs, and then they're literally gone. The very next day. Huff was like the worst kept secret ever.
Yeah, but that was also very weird. Like there was a lot of, I think everybody's hands were dirty in that scenario. Like that it seemed like there was a lot going on in terms of him and the administration. Yeah. Contractually, negotiation and like politics and stuff. So that I think this kind of came out of left field though, right? Like
with Albin.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm sure from a monetary standpoint, it's a step up, but
yeah,
I don't know that I would necessarily call from a prestige or a program viability standpoint that it's a step up. But nonetheless, Tim Albin is at Charlotte now. Like we've alluded to, as you might expect, when there's a lot of staff turnover, you have a lot of player turnover as well. They lose quarterback to Sean Purdy, who briefly went to Florida and now is at Wake Forest. Quarterback Max Brown is off to West Virginia. Running back Sean Wilson is off to UTEP. Wide receiver, Isaiah Myers, Purdue. Running back, Teron Kelman, Wyoming. Wide receiver, Omega Blake, Arkansas. Edge, Damon Clowney to Louisville. Tight end, Colin Weber is off to Rutgers. And running back, Cartavius Norton is off to South Florida. They lose 4 of 5 starting offensive linemen. They do bring in some talent. Wide receiver Jaden McCown coming over from Boston College. Running back Donald Chaney Jr. coming from Louisville. Quarterback Connor Harrell coming over from North Carolina. Quarterback Grayson Loftus from Duke. And wide receiver Nate Spillman from Tennessee. I'm slightly intrigued by the addition of Connor Harrell if he wins that job.
Loftus has talent too, but like they're very
different.
Very different. In terms, like who's their OC? What do we have expectations in terms of their system?
Todd Fitch. I don't know. I mean, he's LSU, Ohio State.
Okay.
Yep, just offensive analyst. So I'm not exactly sure how much. It's probably more so taking concepts from here and there.
Yeah.
Obviously, talent level is going to be a little bit different than Ohio State and LSU for wide receivers. Probably, arguably number 1 and number 2 wide receiver talents in America. But yeah, I think there'll be concepts that he would bring.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what Albin wants to do, right? Because like you said, both Loftus and Harrell, I think, both have talent, but they're two very different quarterbacks. Obviously, Connor Harrell, I think most people would probably be more excited about him because he was, folks were excited that he went to Carolina. It never really worked out at Carolina, and it might never work out, right? We don't, happens all the time. Guys drop down even to the G5, and it still doesn't work out. Harrell's probably the one that interests me the most. I just don't think they're going to be a very good team at all. And if the offensive line, like I said, they lose 4 of the 5 starters, so to me that I would lean towards Harrell, right? Just because of he has more mobility if there is O-line issues. But at the end of the day, I don't think they're gonna be a very good team.
Yeah, totally. Hopefully when UNC comes to town week 2 or whatever it is, they can scratch out a W. I've already started to make some bets against Bill Belichick and UNC from a season-long perspective. So that would be a nice way to get that those wagers started for me. But I agree. I mean, how positive can you be thinking about year 1 for Charlotte?
Yeah, it's gonna be a long rebuild, and we'll see if Albin will get the time. And I'm kind of with you. I think I tend to lean, that Smith was really more of the. If I had to pick between the two, I'd rather have Brian Smith, and Ohio kept him. So kudos to Ohio. All right, let's go over to who Luke calls my favorite team in college football, and that's the East Carolina Pirates. They aren't my favorite team. Obviously, my favorite teams.
They are. Trust me, if you're not watching us on YouTube or live right now, you're listening to us in only a podcast form. He's decked out in his ECU gear. Purple and gold is all he's wearing. But yeah, so they finished 8-5 last season. Head coach Blake Harrell is now in. He was interim when Mike Houston got fired, so obviously he is out, but he served as the team's defensive coordinator since 2020, so he's been with the team for a while. Offensive coordinator John David Baker returns for year 2. Before he was at ECU, he was the co-OC at Ole Miss in 2022 and 2023. And then defensive coordinator, obviously your defensive coordinator becomes your head coach. Josh Aldridge will be in year 1. He comes from Auburn, where he served as a defensive edge coach in 2024 and linebacker coach in 2023. So those are the new coaches there at ECU, and it was fun and explosive and fun to watch ECU last year.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the coaching change kind of coincided with a quarterback change to Caton Hauser, and that offense really started rolling last half of the year. I mean, and
Specify it wasn't as fun to watch at the beginning of the year as it was towards the middle and end of the year.
Yeah, Garcia threw a lot of YOLO balls. I think he was back then when he was a starter. He was the number one quarterback in the G5 anyway, in turnover worthy plays. I remember.
Is Garcia still there?
I think he still is. I don't think he left.
He's got to be coming soon, right? He doesn't strike me as a guy who's just going to stick around.
Yeah, I don't know. I would tend to agree with you, but where's he going to go, right? I mean, I don't know that he's going to drop that. Maybe he drops to FCS, I would assume.
Or QB4 on a SEC school.
Yeah, I guess.
That is the trend, right?
Yeah, you see. I mean, if you want money, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clint Carson in the chat says he is still there.
Thank you, Clint.
But yeah, that coaching change and that quarterback change did a lot for East Carolina. They're not my favorite team. Like I said, Old Dominion is my favorite team, but if I had to pick a second team, they probably are number 2, which is kind of weird. They're the second closest team to me. It's only about 2 hours from where I live to get to Greenville. But yeah, I am a big East Carolina fan in terms of, like, I don't know. I like what their offense did at the end of last year, and I think it's going to carry over this year. They lost some pieces, but they've added some pieces in the portal. I think, and where they've lost a lot is on defense, right? And so, to Andrew's point, way back when we started this conversation, they could be in a lot of shootouts, and so that bodes well for the offense. And Caton Hauser and those wide receivers. They do lose running back Javius Bond in the transfer portal. He is off to Austin.
Cornerback.
Is he a cornerback now?
I think so, yeah.
He's someone I always thought was gonna do something there, just because his talent level or his skill set was different from the other running backs. But it never really kind of took off. But nonetheless, he's off to Austin P. Linebacker Zakai Barker off to SMU. Wide receiver Chase Sewell, Iowa State. Running back Rajai Harris, finally out of eligibility. Wide receiver Winston Wright Jr. out of eligibility. Cornerback Siobhan Ravel off to the NFL. They lost a couple other pieces in that secondary as well.
You love your defensive players. Was that guy incredible?
Siobhan Ravel is pretty good. He was. Yeah. I mean, they're not going to miss him because he missed most of the year anyway.
Right.
He had that season-ending injury.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know if he's recovered enough to be at the combine. I think he got a combine invite. I just don't know if he's recovered enough from his injury to actually perform at the combine. But I think he was first-round talent.
Yeah,
NFL draft talent pre-injury. We'll see what they think of him post-injury. But they lose, and in addition to him, I think they lose 2 other defensive backs, and also probably the biggest loss is another big loss for them would be, in addition to Barker, is defensive tackle Deontay Johnson. He was one of the best, most disruptive defensive tackles in the G5. So losing him up front is going to be a blow. And so I think, maybe while this defense wasn't necessarily great last year, I think it's going to be worse in 2025. So that bodes well for a lot of shootouts and for the offense. Players they are bringing in, wide receiver Tyler Johnson from Penn State, running back Parker Jenkins from Houston, and wide receiver Jaquaz Petaway from Oklahoma. And Petaway, that last one, is probably the one that intrigues me the most because I think he's going to start in the slot where Winston Wright Jr. was. You got both Anthony Smith coming back and Yannick Smith. Yannick Smith was a true freshman who kind of came on towards the end of last season with the injuries to some of the other receivers, and Chase Sewell being one of them. I am a big fan of Caden Hauser, the passing offense with the Smith brothers, and they're not really brothers, and Petaway joining that trio at the slot.
And now that we've talked about ECU, Justice, you can take your eye patch off. I thought that was unnecessary to do that segment with the eye patch off. A quick pirate joke for you, Justice. What is a pirate's favorite letter?
R.
Oh, no, it's the C. But you could have gone R. I was going to win either way. Sprinkled in there.
What do you guys think about Petaway? Are you intrigued by him?
I was a fan of him going, like, when he was a freshman going to Oklahoma. I was a fan. So going to ECU, I'm in.
Yeah, it sounds cool. I don't know why couldn't this dude do anything when Oklahoma's top 5 receivers were out for a long stretch in the middle of the season or whatever. I feel like there was off-field context, but I don't know the specs and don't recall exactly what was going on there. But you heard that he was talented, right? And what's that?
And super fast. I don't remember what
so it could be fun if it works.
Yeah, and like to me, like I don't know, like it's Anthony and Yannick both on the outside, right? They're going to compete for touches, whereas I think Petaway is going to get his, and not necessarily in a direct competition with those two guys, right? In a way he is, but to I just feel like the way they use the slot in that offense, I'm not as concerned about his touches as maybe I would be about Yannick and Anthony, more kind of cannibalizing each other.
So Bond is gone, Harris is gone, but there were other guys too.
Yeah, you got London Montgomery returns.
Yeah.
Marlon Gunn, I think, returns. Obviously Parker Jenkins comes in from Houston.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. That feels like a mess to me in terms of like they're going to use them all. If I had to like pick one, I'm probably going to pick London Montgomery because he kind of seemed to be the one guy they kind of favored. If Rajai Harris was hurt or they were trying to spell him, I think Montgomery was that one guy. Parker Jenkins, had high expectations for him last year. He didn't do anything.
Right.
And so I don't know. I mean, he's kind of the shiny new toy, but if I had to pick one guy, I'd probably lean London Montgomery.
It's crazy that Rajai Harris ended up winning people leagues in fantasy last year. Like what? I don't.
He was just so consistent.
What was that?
He was so consistent.
Yeah,
he wasn't like great, but he was consistent. He gets you 80 yards and a touchdown every week.
Yeah.
80, 90 yards. So he's getting you 15, 16 points. He was outstanding. I mean, he won the bowl game for him.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool to see, right? They played NC State in that bowl game. And they got totally hosed on an earlier call, in my opinion, on a fumble. And then they got the ball back, and Rajai Harris runs for like an 85-yard, 86-yard touchdown to win the game for him, which is just cool all around. And those two teams will play each other week 1,
correct,
of the season. So we'll get a rematch, and there's no shortage of bad blood between those two programs, as we saw in the game, and I'm sure we'll see week 1 in the 2025 season when they meet again.
All right.
Go to probably the favorite coaches, our favorite coaches of AAC, our favorite new coaches in the AAC.
So let's talk about Florida Atlantic and head coach Tom Herman out. Zach Kitley comes in. He spent the last 3 seasons as the OC and quarterback coach at Texas Tech, but prior to that was known for his time with Bailey Zappi First, he was an OC at Houston Baptist in 2018 to 2022 with Zappe, and then they both moved to Western Kentucky, and that's probably what people most know him for is and being that OC and quarterback coach in 2021 and Bailey Zappe's ridiculous season. OC, I didn't see it labeled anywhere, so I'm going to assume Kitley's going to call plays as well as be the head coach. Would make sense, but no one is there as a co-OC or anything like that. DC, it's going to be Brett Dewhurst. In his first season, he comes via Coastal Carolina, where he served as an analyst in 2024. In 2023, he was a safeties coach at Mississippi State, and in 2022, he was the defensive analyst with the focus on safeties, and he worked with the DBs at Texas State 2019 to 2021.
Yeah, this is probably like of all the coaching hires, this is probably my favorite one. I'm not too excited about any of the other new coaches in the AAC. And I think really the reason why we're excited about this is we're hoping he can get some of that Houston Baptist, Western Kentucky magic back. He never really had that going at Texas Tech, but maybe going back to the G5, he'll be able to rekindle some of that Bailey Zappe and Jared Stearns magic there for the Owls.
And you never really know if it was because he was a co-OC with what's his name who went over to Washington State.
Arbuckle, Ben Arbuckle.
So then it's like
who's now at Oklahoma. Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, he had success. Was it just because it was Washington State? Why didn't you have success at Texas Tech? Was Arbuckle maybe carrying the coaching co-OC title there a little bit? We don't really know. It's like I could lean one way, but this will be interesting. Again, Arbuckle then going to Oklahoma and then Kitley coming to FAU. That'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out.
And
I think they're both really good coaches. I think that the flavor at Texas Tech in terms of offensive scheme looked a little different than how we expected, but I think they made a conscious effort to lean on a transcendent player in the program, right, in Taj Brooks, and maybe if he's not there, it looks a little more air raid in nature. But we still saw like Josh Kelly have a really, really good year at Texas Tech in the slot, which is like traditionally like that is right. That's where Jared Stearns played. But I don't know I don't think I can look on Zach Kitley's tenure at Texas Tech and think it was anything other than a success. Maybe not a home run, but like in between a double and triple.
Yeah, it's just very different than what was expected, right? And part of that too could have been quarterbacks and injuries, right? They seem to have a lot of quarterback injuries while he was there at Texas Tech, and so that could have played a big part of it as well.
For sure.
Personnel wise, they do lose quite a bit, probably primarily mostly on offense. But they lose safety Philip Dunman off to UCF, quarterback Cam Fancher off to UCF, safety freshman sensation CJ Hurd is off to Vanderbilt, running back Zuberi Mobley over to Tulane, wide receiver Omari Hayes to Tulane, and running back CJ Campbell is off to Rutgers. But they do bring in some help on the offense, most notably teammates, wide receiver Easton Messer coming over from Western Kentucky, and quarterback Caden Veltkamp coming over from Western Kentucky. They also bring in wide receiver Damian Alford coming from Utah. He was at Syracuse before Utah, right? And so, that Messer and Veltkamp duo, I'm pretty excited for, right? They already have a familiarity with each other. They have, I assume at least Veltkamp has maybe some familiarity with Kitley when he was at Western Kentucky. Maybe not, they didn't work together a great deal because that's when Bailey Zappe was there. And I think Veltkamp might have been a freshman then.
Sounds right.
When Kitley was there that year. but obviously they have some familiarity. Messer plays in the slot. That's pretty exciting, right? And so I'm kind of excited to see. I don't think that they don't have a talent at running back like a Taj Brooks, right? Especially with C.J. Campbell gone. I don't think that they have a talent at Florida Atlantic at running back that's going to prevent Messer and Feldkamp from kind of slinging the ball around. Defensively, I think again the defense, the like I said, losing those two safeties is huge. But I'm not scared of the Florida Atlantic defense. I don't think that scares anybody. And so I kind of see, a lot of shootouts in their future. And so, Veltkamp and Messer kind of would be the beneficiaries, I think, of that.
Have you done any drafts yet?
We did. Jared's way too early draft. And
where did Veltkamp and Messer go, roughly?
Was it rounds 5 and 6 or 6 and 7, something like that?
Oh, wow. They both went really early.
Well, Bainbridge took them. Bainbridge took them both.
Okay. I would think I could see Messer going in that area. I feel like Veltkamp will move down a little bit and settle a little later on in drafts. But I'm interested in both for sure. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think we took a different stack. We took a Hawaii stack. We took Alahado and Fele Ashlock. And I think
nobody's interested in that.
I know. You're right. I don't think they are. But I'm a big Micah Alahado fan. And so we went into that draft making sure we were going to get him. And I know we took him too early. I know we did, but just the way it worked out, and we took him in Ashlock. But I think the next round, Bainbridge was right behind us, and I think he took Easton Messer, and then he followed that up with Veltkamp. So I want to say that was 6 and 7 or 7 and 8, something like that, off the top of my head.
I'll look.
Yeah, we don't want to steal Jared's thunder because I don't think he hasn't done his episode yet on that draft.
So he took Messer in the 6th round,
and then Veltkamp in the 7th. And I think we did ours in like the 5th and the 6th. Is that right? Alahado and Ashlock.
Yep, 4 and 5.
So we had 4th and 5th round. Yeah, and it was early. We talked about it. It was like this is probably too early. We were worried that there hadn't been a big quarterback run yet, and we were worried that Alahado wouldn't make it back to us. And he may or may not have. I think I don't know. I think people either love him or don't love him, right? I don't know. There's a lot of in between on him, and we're probably higher on him than most. So we went ahead and took him. But yeah, Easton Messer, Caden Veltkamp, Florida Atlantic. I think it's going to be exciting offense, if nothing else, in Florida, right?
Definitely.
So, and to your point, a lot of shootouts in the AAC. Let's move over to the favorite, who was our favorite preseason last year, who I think is going to look very, very different this year. I'm actually kind of a little scared, and I don't know that it's just going to be a very different team this year for the Memphis Tigers. They lose so much.
So Memphis Tigers, they were 11-2 last year, but something not changing, coaches. Ryan Silverfield comes back as head coach for his 6th season. Co-offensive coordinator Tim Cramsey comes with his 4th season, Larry Smith in his 2nd season, and DC Jordan Hinkins in his 2nd season. So it's going to be mainly the personnel, not any coaching things.
Yeah, they lose a lot of players, just either in the portal, NFL, out of eligibility. Tight end Brendan Doyle off to Stanford. Tight end Anthony Landfair is out of eligibility. Quarterback Seth Hennigan out of eligibility. Running back Mario Anderson Jr. out of eligibility. Kicker Caden Costa off to UNLV. Linebacker Elijah Herring off to Florida State. Safety Darius Coffey off to Northwestern. Wide receiver Rock Taylor out of eligibility. Wide receiver Demir Blakumsa out of eligibility. And linebacker Chandler Martin is off to the NFL. They lose a lot. I think there was some folks thought that Anthony Lanphier might be able to come back because of that JUCO ruling. However, that's not the case. What's happened is that JUCO ruling only applies if you didn't already get an additional year because of COVID. So Anthony Lanphier got an additional year because of COVID, and so because of that reason, he also does not get the additional JUCO year, and that's kind of that's no one knew that when that ruling come out, but that's kind of what we have seen with JUCOs. If they got the extra COVID year, they don't get the extra JUCO year. Players coming in: wide receiver Jaden Thompson coming from Louisville, safety Kamari Wilson, Arizona State, linebacker Sam Brumfield from Virginia Tech, kicker Gianni Spektic from Ohio, tight end Jerry Cross from Penn State, linebacker Drew Watts from Nevada, running back Rashad Amos from Ole Miss, linebacker Everett Rusall Jr. from UAB, quarterback Brendan Lewis from Nevada, safety Amarian Cooper from Florida State, offensive lineman Austin Gentle from Harvard, defensive tackle Puda Walker coming over from Kennesaw State, and cornerback Chris Bracey, one of the top freshmen in all of college football last year, coming over from UAB. This offense is going to look very different. No Rock Taylor, no Demir Plakumsa, no Seth Hennigan. In comes Brendan Lewis, who you assume is kind of the stopgap QB, I guess is the best way to call it, right? While they wait for either Arrington Maiden or four-star freshman Antoine Hill to be ready. And Lewis is not Seth Hennigan. Brings a different skill set than Seth Hennigan. But this offense is going to look very different, I think, than what folks are accustomed to in Memphis. And I don't know that it's going to be nearly as successful as Memphis has been, the last 2 or 3 years.
The interesting thing about Memphis is typically they've had a quarterback from within that they've built up throughout the years, and then they bring in a transfer running back, and they also kind of have homegrown type wide receivers. So I'm looking for something from Keandre Henry. He was a freshman last year. I'm kind of expecting something from him this year, wide receiver wise. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, what they do there at quarterback. Because I believe Mario Anderson, when we interviewed him, he talked highly of
Arrington Maiden.
So
yeah, if it seems like it's trending toward Brendan Lewis being QB1, I don't know how much I want to buy into the receiving room from the outside of the season.
Absolutely.
It was fun watching the Nevada offensive coaching staff kind of unlock him this year, but it felt like it took a very specifically creative game plan that doesn't really do much in terms of benefiting the passing game options. I'm super interested in Rashad Amos. The problem being they have other good running backs as well on that team that kind of make me hesitant to draft him too early, but later round running back shots, he is right. I don't know where he ends up going in the draft, but I feel like the murky nature of how that running back room is likely to look early or in the spring into the fall camp. I will be taking some shots on him, assuming things just kind of progress in a way that okay, maybe he's 1A, 1B-ish. I think that dude's talented. I loved watching him ball out at Miami, Ohio. I don't hold getting conned into taking a bag at Ole Miss or whatever and getting a few carries to be RB6. I don't hold that against his talent level. I think he's still a talented guy. We saw him play amazingly at Miami, Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what worries me the most, like you said, is the other running back. So Sutton Smith coming back from injury, Greg DeRozier's Jr., who we saw shine towards the end of last year, in addition to Mario. And then if Brendan Lewis is the quarterback, right, he's gonna command some carries as well. And so I think that that really kind of, I guess, concerns. If I'm probably more concerned about Amos if Brendan Lewis is the quarterback, right? Is there just going to be enough balls to kind of go around for that running game?
Yeah, I forgot about the Rosiers. That dude is good. He's getting all the third down work, and like even with Mario being super, super productive, like they still would give the Rosiers like a decent share of the early down work because they couldn't keep him off the field at the end of the year.
Yeah,
and they want Sutton Smith to be a thing. They do. So.
Yeah, so I mean, they brought, and then they bring those pieces in, like you said, Jaden Thompson, Jerry Cross, the tight end, Keondae Hendry, the freshman. But unless it's going to be Arrington Maiden and not Brendan Lewis, I don't know that I can really buy into the passing game. You ready to move over to the other triple option offense here in the AAC?
Yeah, let's talk about the Navy Midshipmen. They went 10-3 last year. Coaching changes. They have no coaching changes. Head coach Brian Newberry will be in his third season as head coach. He's been with the team since 2019, served as the DC there. Offensive coordinator Drew Cronick is in his second season. Just for a refresher, he came to Navy via Mercer. He was hired as being considered as one of the more innovative offensive minds, and he kind of proved that there in year one. And then defensive coordinator PJ Volker is in his third season. He's been 7 seasons with Navy, served as a backing coach there.
As we mentioned with the Army personnel, they don't really lose anyone in the transfer portal, but they do have some guys that are out of eligibility. They lose 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. And then the rest is really on the defensive side. Linebacker Colin Ramos, out of eligibility. That's going to be a big blow for them. He was their leading tackler, one of the top tacklers in college football. Cornerback Deshaun Peel, who was a fine corner for them, is out of eligibility, as well as safety Rayron Lane III. All out of eligibility. They don't bring anyone in the portal. You don't see. It's not unheard of for them to bring someone in the portal, but it's not very common. I know there was a tight end that came into the portal that actually committed to Old Dominion, and he got an offer, I think, to Army in the portal. Now his situation is a little bit weird because he didn't play at Florida last year, so he still had 4 years of eligibility, and so maybe that's why the academies offered him. But anyway, he ended up at Old Dominion, didn't go to Army. Offensively, they return, Eli Heidenreich, Blake Horvath, Alex Texa. So I think offensively, they're going to be fine. Defensively, they're already in shootouts last year. They're losing 3 of their better players. They do return Landon Robinson, the nose guard, who's a phenomenal athlete. I think that the thing most impressive for me, and you alluded to it when we talk about the coaches, was how offensive coordinator Drew Cronick did last year. They were able to they had a lot of explosive plays with him in the passing game, as well as the running game, mostly to Eli Heidenreich. I mean, Eli didn't get a lot of touches, but he did a lot with the touches he did get, whether that be running the ball or through the air. I think it's only a matter of time. I think before, if someone wants to run a triple option, or that style of offense, they're gonna hire Drew Cronick to take over his offense. While it's not explosive in the sense of like a Western Kentucky was, or some of these other high flying teams, for an option offense, it was explosive.
Agree. It is definitely a blessing for Navy to have him around for another year because it doesn't feel like it's like he's going to be there in any sort of long-term sense. For fantasy perspective, right? Like it feels like it's pretty much Horvath or bust. Like I don't know how deep you would have to be in a draft to really consider Heidenreich because I mean maybe it would have to be best ball too because like
right? What, you just have to get the touches.
Yeah, how am I possibly gonna predict that dude is gonna have a big week any week?
Yeah, like and hopefully those like 8 touches are really great.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. Like you said, he'd get 5 to 8 touches a game, but he was still getting 100 yards and a touchdown. He's still really productive on limited touches. It'll be interesting to see if there's any adjustments to that offense now that they've gone through a season with it to see if other teams make any kind of adjustments to kind of limit that explosiveness that we did see with Drew Cronick's offense.
All right. Well, let's move over to North Texas. Mean Green, they were 6-7 last year. Coaching changes. They've got a new defensive coordinator, Skylar Cassidy, in his first season. He was the DC at Sam Houston last year in 2024. He was Abilene Christian in 2022 and 2023 as a DC. So Matt Capone is out. Jordan Davis, offensive coordinator, comes back for his 3rd season, and head coach Eric Morris in his 3rd season.
It's kind of I think this is it, right? This is a make or break year for Eric Morris. I think if he doesn't at least get them in the upper tier of the AAC, I think he could be gone. I like Skylar Cassidy. He did. I mean, that Sam Houston defense in 2024 was phenomenal. And he brings over quite a few players with him. The interesting thing I think will be, the Sam Houston offense was very much a ball control offense, right? And North Texas is not a ball control offense. And so it'll be interesting to me, like with the style of offense that North Texas plays, I don't know that you can ever expect them to have the best defense in the conference, right? Just because I think they're just going to be on the field so much because of the style of offense. But I think if their style of play is going to work, I think Skylar Cassidy was a good hire. He said a phenomenal defensive coordinator at Sam Houston. They were one of the best defenses in all of college football. So I do think that was a great hire by them. It'll just kind of be interesting to see if that defense will work with how that will mesh with the offensive scheme there at North Texas. Personnel wise, they lose running back Akaika Regsdale off to Stony Brook, wide receiver Nick Rimpert to Nevada, running back Shane Porter to UTEP, quarterback Cash McCollum to Weber State, tight end Oscar Hammond to Oklahoma State, wide receiver DT Sheffield to Rutgers, freshman center All-American Tyler Mercer to Kansas, quarterback Chandler Morris off to Virginia, and wide receiver Damon Ward is out of eligibility. They bring in running back Shady Clayton Johnson from Tulane, safety Will Jones II from Old Dominion, wide receiver Simeon Evans from Sam Houston, offensive tackle Jimto Obidegwo from Kent State, linebacker Samaj Burrell, Sam Houston, edge Brycean Hayes, Sam Houston, quarterback Reese Poffenbarger from Miami, Florida, linebacker Trey Fields from Sam Houston, and quarterback Devon Armstead from Sam Houston. I think the most interesting thing for me will be who's the starting quarterback between Reese Poffenbarger and Drew Mestemaker. And I think I know a lot of people like Poffenbarger, but man, Drew Mestemaker looked pretty damn good in that bowl game. Considering his first start since ninth grade JV ball.
Yeah, he's that game, the bowl games on my checklist of like, I need to go back and watch this with an eye toward 2025. It's been like a month since the season ended, and I'm still in the third quarter of the Hawaii-New Mexico game because I just haven't stared at YouTube enough.
That was another great game. Mike Alejado played phenomenal.
Yeah, he's incredible. But then I gotta go watch Syracuse, Washington State for Zevi. I gotta watch this game for Mestamaker, and then I got a couple others as well. But I read a bunch of articles on Mestamaker before and after that game, and his story is super interesting. I want to root for both these kids, but like only one of them's getting this job. Obviously, I don't know how to handicap it. I think you probably make Poffenberger a slight favorite, but I wouldn't be surprised either way.
I think I lean Mestamaker as a slight favorite.
I say the Mestamaker just because being in the offense, the system. Yeah. I think it just gives you a leg up.
That's fair.
And Miles Coleman, like that, he had a breakout game. We talked about him last year when we did our Worker Bee series with Brett Vito about how he was just built different for a freshman. We didn't get to see a ton of them last year, but he had his coming out party in that bowl game, and I think he's another one that I think is primed for a phenomenal 2025. It'll be interesting to see how him and Landon Sides are used together, right? Because they're both kind of slot guys, and they lose the two outside guys with Ward and DT Sheffield. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how Sides and Coleman are used, but I'm excited to see how that happens. And with the quarterbacks, say Coleman and Mestamaker seem to have a good relationship in the bowl game, but that's probably because both of them are running with the twos most of the year, right? And so they kind of already had that rapport prior to the bowl game.
All right.
How into Chris Jimerson are you from a dynasty perspective?
Probably not at all, but
he sounds cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Fair.
I mean, it really probably depends. Like, it had to be like a super deep league for me.
Fine.
So let's move over to Rice Owls, who were 4-8 last year. Kind of a surprise 4-8 for at least Justice and I. We thought they had a chance to make the championship game at the beginning of the year. Head coaching change. Mike Bloomgren is out. I don't know if I really saw that coming as a change, but
they returned so much production last year, or that we thought they were primed for success, and they were god awful.
And so Scott Abel comes in as his first season as head coach. He was previously the head coach at Davidson, where he was the winningest coach in school history, going 47-28 in 7 seasons. He was 35-18 in the Pioneer Football League. He brings in OC Vince Munch in his first season. He spent 7 seasons as the coaching offensive line, with 4 of those seasons as the run game coordinator at Davidson. So Brian Smith out there at OC. And then DC, John Kay, in his first season, he was a decorated high school coach in the Houston area, in 9 seasons, went 117-18. He spent the last 2 seasons as a linebacker coach. He was still coached that linebacker room, but has now just added that defensive coordinator title to his name, and that is John Kay.
Looking at this team, or looking at Davidson and their history, and it's super run heavy, right? And so, I mean, that was kind of my takeaway, I guess. This isn't one of the coaching changes that gets me super excited. I mean, I guess I'm a little have tempered expectations, I guess, for running back Tajee Atkins, who's someone I really liked coming in as a freshman last year. Didn't play much last year with Dean Connors there. So maybe, it's positive for him. But outside of that, I struggled to think of any positive impacts in terms of from a fantasy perspective, I guess.
Who's going to play quarterback there?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Dude, they did like nothing in the portal. Like
they did. You're right. I've got literally no one of note coming in.
I have nothing either. They lost their two best players, Connors and Warner, and for destination column, I have no Rice. I was surprised to see that. We have no idea. We still have no idea what happened with Landon Ransom. Right? Could be anything.
No.
That's awesome.
That was just an odd one, right? Like, didn't even play. We'll have to dig into more or see if we can find out more when we do our interview for the Worker Bee series. But yeah, like you said, they lose quarterback EJ Warner off to Fresno State, running back Dean Connors is off to Houston, and safety Tyson Flowers is off to Virginia Tech. They don't really bring anyone of note. Like I said, Davidson really a run heavy offense. So maybe it's positive for Tajee Atkins. I know Clint was a big fan of Tajee Atkins as well as I was. So maybe this will be good news for Tajee. But outside of that, I really have trouble getting overly excited for this hire and for this team in 2025.
Should we just move on to South Florida?
One thing real quick, and we'll talk about. I'll wait till we get there. Never mind. I'll wait till we get there.
All right. South Florida Bulls 7-6 last year. Coaching changes, none-ish. They add a OC and get the label co-OC there. So head coach Alex Golish is returning for his third season. Offensive coordinator Joel Gordon is in for his third season. Prior to USF, he was the DC and linebacker coach at FAU. They add a co-OC, Cody Burns, who coached wide receivers in 2021 with Golish at Tennessee. He comes to USF after spending 2022 and 2023 seasons as the wide receiver coach for the New Orleans Saints. So he parlayed that really good Tennessee year into some time there with the New Orleans, and then going back with Golish here at South Florida. DC, Todd Orlando returns for his third season prior to USF. He was with Iowa State from 2016 to 2022, where he spent his last 4 seasons as the passing game coordinator and QB coach.
Personnel-wise, they lose wide receiver Abdur Rahman Yassin off to JMU. One of my personal favorites, quarterback Israel Carter, is off to Norfolk State. Running back Naquan Wright out of eligibility. Wide receiver Sean Atkins out of eligibility. Running back Kelly Joyner out of eligibility. They bring in wide receiver Chaz Nimrod from Tennessee, edge Josh Seliskar from Texas A&M, and running back Cartavius Norton from Charlotte. And obviously, everyone's surprised, Byron Brown is back, right? See how healthy he'll be. I mean, he wasn't playing great before he got hurt. That team wasn't playing well before Byron Brown got hurt. Be interesting to see if he can kind of have a bounce back year this year. And I like the addition of Chaz Nimrod. He was someone I kind of liked at Tennessee, so I'm interested to see what he can do at South Florida. See maybe he's the replacement for Sean Atkins.
What do you think the chances are Brown's in the portal after this spring?
I don't think he will be. I think if he was going to go, he would have gone.
Yeah, that's fair. The murky nature of everything that happened with him in the back half of the year makes me think that how can we crystallize anything regarding his status? But I agree with you. It makes sense. Like, dude, if dude was going to go to like a go take a bag at a P4 school or whatever, like you would think the time would have been December, not April.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for sure he was going to be gone.
Yeah.
But he didn't. I thought all those quarterbacks were going to leave. Yeah, and it wouldn't shock me if he comes back and plays the way he did in 2020, 2023, or if he comes back and looks god awful again like he did to begin 2024. I wouldn't be shocked by either outcome, right? I guess I just don't really. I don't really know what to expect.
I'm willing to buy low in drafts
Sure.
if the price is discounted. Like his early season schedule was include. I guess Miami's awful defensively, but still jump up in competition. You would think Miami, Alabama, and then Tulane is the game I believe where he hurts his knee, and then we never see him again, right? So like that, what was that? That was like 3 games. That's 3 games of like the first 5. So I'll excuse his level of play to some degree, and I'm willing to just kind of forget about it, especially if like we were paying first round last year for him, right? What if we're paying?
What if
it's like
he was one of the like him and Caden Salter. And we're like the top 2 quarterbacks, right? In drafts. I'm probably if I'm gonna pick one piece of this offense, I'm probably gonna take a later shot on Chaz Nimrod because I liked him at Tennessee, and I think again, South Florida's defense is not good, like most of the defenses in the AAC, and they're gonna have to throw the ball, and I think Nimrod could be the primary beneficiary in that wide receiver room.
All right, let's move over to Temple Owls. They were 3-9 last season. Stan Drayton out as head coach. Casey Keeler comes in his first season, previously the head coach for the last 10 years at Sam Houston. OC Danny Langsdorf is out. Keeler brings in Tyler Walker for his first season. He's been with Montana State since 2021, serving as the tight end and fullbacks coach in 2022 and 2023. He was he served as the tight end and fullbacks coach in 2022 and 2023. And then in 2024, he was the OC and quarterbacks coach there for Montana State. DC, he bring in Brian Smith, first season, previously with Rice. Since 2018, he held that DC title at Rice. Since that 2018 season, he also coached safeties along with being the DC in 2018 to 2020. In 21 and 22, he coached the linebackers as well as being the defensive coordinator. And then back in 2023 and 2024, he went back to the safeties as being the defensive coordinator as well.
I kind of looked at Montana State and what they did, and to me it looked very similar to what we saw from Sam Houston this year, right? A mobile quarterback, ran the ball a lot. I want to say Montana State had like 3 or close to 3,000-yard rushers in 2024. So it just kind of seems like similar style of offense, I would assume, to what Casey Keeler had there at Sam Houston this past year. The thing that struck me, and I was going to mention a few moments ago, and I don't know why I didn't realize this until I was putting together the show sheet, but there's 3 teams with an Owls mascot in the AAC.
Yes.
So that they just need to get Kennesaw State in the AAC, and they can have all the Owl mascots in the same conference.
I'm trying to remember. I mentioned a weird stat last year, and I think it was maybe FAU, but there was one team that played all of the Owls.
Yes.
Played,
and the other thing you'll notice, at least, and all 4 of them lost their head coaches too. All 4 of them last season at one point fired. If you were a coach of an Owl, you got fired. I don't know that there's anything that excites me about this team, not for the 2025 season anyway. Personnel wise, they lose running back Antoine Littleton II off to Rhode Island, linebacker Tyquan King off to Connecticut, tight end Landon Morris is in the portal, wide receiver Dante Wright is out of eligibility. They bring in running back Jay Ducker from Sam Houston, cornerback Avery Powell from Missouri State, quarterback Anthony Chickett from Robert Morris, and defensive tackle Aaron Beckwith from UMass. I do think Casey Keeler is a good hire. I think he's a good coach, but I don't think Temple is going to be anywhere near good in 2025. I mean, maybe Jay, if that defense is able to, be competent, maybe you'll see Jay Ducker or maybe Therese Worthy kind of share that backfield and get some workload there. But I just don't think Temple is going to be very, very good in 2025. I think eventually they will under Keeler if they give him the time. He's from the Northeast. He's a longtime head coach at Delaware, where he led them to a national championship in the FCS. And so I think, he's getting back to his roots there in the Northeast, but I don't think 2025 is going to be kind to the Temple Owls.
I agree, dude. Yeah, there's not I agree with everything you said. It's going to take a minute, but I have faith in Keeler to get things turned around there.
All right, let's move over to Tulane Green Wave, 9-5 last season. No coaching changes. John Summerall comes back as the head coach for his second season. Previously was a head coach at Troy in 2022 and 2023. Offensive coordinator Joe Croddack back for his second season. He was also at Troy, OC and quarterback coach in 2022 and 2023. And then DC Greg Gasparotto in his second season, again, also at Troy, where he was their DC in 2023.
It's going to be pretty much a whole new offense. They lose quarterback Kai Horton off to Washington, running back Shady Clayton Johnson off to North Texas, running back Makai Hughes to Oregon, tight end Alex Bowman to Miami, quarterback Darian Mensah to Duke, and wide receiver Mario Williams Jr. is out of eligibility. Should also be noted that quarterback Ty Thompson is moving to tight end. They bring in edge Maurice Westmoreland from UTEP, wide receiver Anthony Brown-Stevens from Kentucky, quarterback Caden Samanza from Ball State, running back Maurice Turner from Louisville, offensive lineman Jack Holyfield from App State, wide receiver Jimmy Callaway, Louisville, quarterback Donovan Leary, Illinois, defensive lineman Santana Hopper from App State, quarterback TJ Finley from Western Kentucky, running back Zuberi Mobley from Florida Atlantic, wide receiver Omari Hayes from Florida Atlantic, offensive tackle Jordan Hall from Liberty, and edge Ty Cooper from Mississippi State. Almost a complete overhaul on offense, right?
And so
they bring in 3 quarterbacks.
And so far, there was a lot of names there that you mentioned. Like, you could argue about talent level of any of these guys. There was a lot of names you mentioned there. You know who else you mentioned a lot of names for? Which team that was? Memphis. Shockingly, probably 2 of the bigger spenders in the G5. So you would assume, I know we'll get to it at the end where we kind of, maybe who we think are going to be the champion or in the championship game. But I think those 2 teams will tend to find themselves on the right side of games or not, based off of just who they have access to for player-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think the quarterback competition is going to be interesting. I personally think it's going to be Caden Samanza. I think he's the best of the 3. TJ Finley is not been great anywhere he's been. And I'm not a big Donovan Leary fan. I think Samanza, I think if he wins the job, then I think they can possibly be a contender again. If it's Finley or Leary, I think they're a pretender.
Yeah, I was hoping Simonza would have gone to like a little more up tempo, slinging around a bit offense, because that dude is talented. I love watching him sling the ball. I am worried that they're just going to be deferential and give Finley the first snap on day one of the first game of the year. So I'm a little hesitant to just go.
Why do you believe
go
that?
too heavy on some. What's that?
Why do you believe that?
I just why? What do you?
So
Do you think?
they bring in Ty Simpson last year,
Ty Thompson.
or Ty Thompson, and then you have Ty Thompson versus who was
Kai
it?
Horton.
Kai Horton, and then Darian Mensah kind of
comes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
out of nowhere as a third stringer, and he starts right away. So I don't know if they would.
Yeah,
Just
that's a good point.
Hey, we're gonna default give it to TJ Finley. I think it'll be whoever shows out is gonna show out, and they're gonna get it. Whoever earns it in practice is what I think.
Good point.
I think Simonza has the most talent.
Yeah.
Whether he clearly demonstrates that over practice, I guess we'll see. I would fully expect that if TJ Finley thinks he's not the starter, he is going to leave again. Right? I mean, I don't see him sticking around. So perhaps what TJ Finley does after the spring might be a good indication of how things are going.
Totally.
I do like the addition of Amari Hayes. I think he can be the wide receiver one there. When we saw Mario Williams be productive for him last year, but I like him more if Simonza is at quarterback than the other two options. Running back, I mean, I don't know. Mobley, I guess, is going to be in the mix, but I don't know that I expect anyone to have a Mekhi Hughes type season there.
Is that guy Arnold, whatever his name is, Arnold Barnes, good?
I mean, he was a high recruit,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I mean, he's not. I don't think he's Mekhi Hughes.
True.
I think it's going to be more of a committee approach probably for them.
Justice, that comment, he's no Mekhi Hughes, just makes me laugh. It's like, oh, he's just no D1 Big Ten running back that goes to Oregon. Like, he's not that. It's like, oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't know that he's head and shoulders above better than Zuberi Mobley either. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't. This could be the first year in what, I don't know, 3 years or so that they don't have a 1,000-yard rusher, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, let's move over to Tulsa Golden Hurricanes, 3-9 last season. Justice and I guess maybe I'm not speaking for you, Justice. I was really excited about Tulsa and what they were growing and building.
Had a lot of talent, and they lost a lot of talent.
They lost a lot. So coaching changes. Kevin Wilson out. Trey Lamb comes in first season, comes in via East Tennessee State, where he was the head coach in 2024. 2020 through 2023, he was the head coach at Gardner-Webb. He's pretty much just been successful at all of his stops at East Tennessee State. They were 3-8 for 2 years before Lamb, and he took them to a 7-5 record. Gardner-Webb piled back-to-back winning seasons and a conference titles. That was the first time that they'd done that since 2002 and 2003, and he was the first to do back-to-back FCF playoff appearance in school history. So, like I said, he's just kind of had success in all of his stops. We'll see if Tulsa, if he can do the same there at Tulsa. Brad Robbins is the OC and quarterbacks coach. It'll be his first season. Steve Spurrier Jr. out at OC. Brad Robbins was UConn's quarterback and passing game or quarterback's coach. He wasn't the quarterback. UConn's quarterback coach and passing game coordinator in 2024. Previous to that was the OC and quarterback coach at Southern Utah and the wide receivers and passing game coordinator at Tennessee Tech. There's also going to be a co-OC, but he will also coach tight ends, and Ty Darlington will be his first season. He was an O-line coach for Incarnate Ward in 2024 and tight end coach at Incarnate Ward in 2023. We like to hear Incarnate Ward team names drizzled in there, so that'll be kind of interesting to see what he has to offer there as a co-OC. Defensive coordinator Mike Gray will be in his first season. He spent 2020 through 2023 as a linebacker coach at Gardner-Webb. In 2023, he also then went to the Atlanta Falcons as a defensive analyst, and in 2024, he was Jacksonville Jaguars assistant secondary coach. So spent some time there in the NFL.
Personnel-wise, as you might expect, they actually lost a lot of young talent. Running back Lloyd Avant off to Colorado State, offensive lineman Walter Youngbear to West Virginia, quarterback Cardell Williams off to Sacramento State, wide receiver, freshman All-American wide receiver Joseph Williams off to Colorado, edge Vontroy Malone, Iowa State, tight end Luke McGarry, Houston, freshman offensive tackle Jack Tanner off to Kansas, defensive tackle R.J. Jackson Jr. off to UCF, quarterback Cooper Laga out of eligibility, running back Anthony Watkins out of eligibility, wide receiver Camden Benjamin out of eligibility. They bring in Ricky Hunt Jr., running back from Ohio, wide receiver Micah Miller from Missouri, running back Sevion Morrison from Kansas, and wide receiver Micah Tease from Texas A&M. This one, I'm not super excited about this coaching staff. You look at East Tennessee State, and while they had a good record, there wasn't anything that really excited me there about that offense. Seemed to favor run heavy, but maybe with Robbins and Darlington, they might pass some. I don't know. Like, I feel like all the teams with the new coaches, with the exception of Florida Atlantic, that they're all kind of like the same, where they want to probably play good defense and run the ball a lot. I don't know that in any of their cases they're going to be able to do that. Not in year one. These teams are not good. If they want to win games, they're going to be in shootouts. So
they should have just given Switzer the job.
Yeah. I would have liked to see what he could have done. I think his offense would have been a lot more exciting. Again, I think Trey Lamb, he's proven to be a winner, but I think it's going to take time. And in today's football, again, coaches don't seem to get a lot of time.
I do. I do remain a Ricky Hunt truther though, so I'm interested. I would like to see him get more than 2 carries a game and see what could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what their offense is going to want to do. I just don't know that the defense. I mean, the defense wasn't good last year.
Yeah,
and they lost a lot of the pieces that were good. They've lost those pieces, and so I don't know that the defense is going to allow them to do that. It's Jeremiah Ballard returns. Maybe he's someone kind of sneaky there at wide receiver. That they're gonna have to, that they might have to throw the ball a lot. But I don't know. Tulsa just seems like a big void for me in 2025.
It just seems odd in a lot of the new coaches and kind of being more of that run heavy as being like just different than what it's either going to work out really well or not well at all. It's like, all right, your whole conference is doing all of this, so we're going to do run. So then, you've got these, you're trying to set up to beat everybody in your conference. So if you can be different and have that personnel and be good at it, it could be really good. Or it could be kind of like the Bengals in the NFL. Everybody's doing this run heavy thing And then if like the Bengals, Joe Burrow didn't work out and they're doing this pass heavy thing, like that could have gone incredibly bad. But then you kind of see that AFC North shift to a little bit more of a passing attack. But it's like when you think of the AFC North, you think of ground and pound and then like you kind of think of the Chicago Bears, like they're going to run the ball, they're going to do this. So it's like it seems weird of like it's either going to go extremely well because it's opposite of what people are doing, or because it's opposite of what people are doing, it's going to be extremely bad. Also, you inherit players and stuff. So like we saw with North Texas, when you're trying to run a certain defensive scheme and you don't have those types of players to run that defensive scheme, things don't work out. Or at Wisconsin, when you bring in an air raid in a place that like recruits hefty linemen and we're going to ground and pound you, it just doesn't necessarily work as to what you think it might. So
yeah, really the only coaching hire I think that excites me for 25 in the AAC is the Zach Kitley hire. The others just again seem the same to me. They want to play ball control offense and great defense, and I don't think any of them have the teams to be able to do that. Not for 2025 anyway.
All right. UAB Blazers 3-9 last season. They bring in a new defensive coordinator. Steve Russ will be his first season. Spent 2024 as a special assistant to the head coach at Air Force. 6 years prior, he spent coaching linebackers for the NFL for Carolina and Washington. He's also a two-time Super Bowl champion, so he knows what it is to win. Trent Dilford returns as head coach for his third season, and Alex Mortensen returns for his third season as the OC, where he was previously at Alabama as a grad assistant for 3 years and an offensive analyst for 6 years.
Personnel-wise, they lose safety Adrian Maddox to Georgia, cornerback Chris Bracey to Memphis, linebacker Everett Russaw Jr. to Memphis, offensive lineman Brady Wilson to Virginia, wide receiver Cam Shanks to Arkansas, cornerback Kelvin Hill to Georgia Tech, wide receiver Amari Thomas to Houston, running back Lee Beebe to Indiana, quarterback Jacob Zeno to Texas A&M, and edge Desmond Little is out of eligibility. They bring in edge Amori Morrison from Old Dominion, running back Javon Jackson from UTEP, wide receiver Caleb Brown from Iowa, cornerback Perry Fisher from Maryland, defensive tackle Denver Warren from Sam Houston, and safety Jalen Cheek from Boston College. I think you're going to see just what we've seen from this team in the last 2 years. They're going to have to throw the ball around a lot, right? That's Jalen Kitna will be their quarterback. What I don't know at this point is what that wide receiver room is going to look like, right? Losing both Amari Thomas and Cam Shanks. And they bring in Javon Jackson there at running back to I'm assuming be the lead dog there running back, but
which is kind of interesting because if you don't know who Javon Jackson is, he comes from Austin Peay, who was the head coach at Austin Peay, then goes to be the head coach at UTEP.
At UTEP.
So it's kind of interesting that he would leave that because I know last year was a little bit up and down.
Well, he got in the doghouse and he got back out of the doghouse. But
like he played really well at Austin Peay, so you'd think that he would want to stay with the coach. But yeah, then moving to UAB is interesting.
I mean, they lose.
Go ahead.
They'll say they lose Lee Beebe, who's off to Indiana.
Did you have them getting Caleb Brown? Did you?
Yep.
Okay,
Caleb
cool.
Brown from Iowa. And maybe he might be the answer at receiver.
Yeah, he looked good in 23. Last year, I think he got suspended right off the bat and then kind of fell out of the rotation. But he's got talent. Like, do we think they didn't fire Delfer just for financial purposes?
I'm sure that's part of it.
Yeah. but like, what was positive about last year, right? And then
I mean,
things only got worse in the off season.
And I don't think anything is going to change. I don't think they're going to be any better. Corey Milner came on strong at the end of the year, a freshman, a receiver. So maybe he's someone that can help kind of step up in the place of Cam Shanks and Amari Thomas. But yeah, I mean, I kind of expect more of the same: bad defense and them having to sling it around a ton, which is what they had to do last year with Jalen Kitna. And I think there's nothing that's changed that made me think that they're going to have to change their play style just because they're not going to be any better than they were in 2024.
To your point, Andrew, that I think he's on the hot seat, and I just kind of note a yellow flag, asterisk or something. A head coach who doesn't really change their offensive coordinator, but also keeps his job, that like maybe underperformed or something, but then they change their DC. It's like, okay, like I got to change something, and I want to keep my job, so I'm going to have to get a new this, and we're going to blame it on the defense, which maybe in the AAC is easier to do. But yeah, that's a flag, a thing to note for going into the year, and maybe things trend a certain way. Maybe Trent Dilford isn't there.
Yeah,
or
I don't think he will be.
Offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be their head coach next year. But I guess the probably the thing I'm paying the most attention to is the spring practice reports and kind of see who's standing out at receiver there, because they're going to have to sling it around again.
All right. Let's move over to the UTSA Roadrunners, 7-6 last year. No coaching changes. Jeff Traylor comes back for his 6th season. Justin Berkey comes back for his 3rd season as the OC. And then Jess Lepp comes back in his 4th season for the defensive coordinator.
Personnel-wise, mostly on defenses, I think, where their big losses are coming from. They lose edge Jamori Robinson off to West Virginia, cornerback Denver Harris to UNLV, running back Rocco Griffin to UMass, linebacker Martavius French to Colorado, running back Kavorian Barnes to TCU, cornerback Zaw Frazier, and our AAC Defensive Player of the Year, so off to the NFL. Running back Robert Henry out of eligibility, linebacker Jamal Ligon out of eligibility. They bring in linebacker Shad Banks Jr. coming over from TCU, and wide receiver Jalen Smith coming over from Michigan State. Really excited about the offense. The offense, for the most part, returns just about everybody, but defense is gonna be worse. The defense was, pretty decent last year. They're gonna be worse. They lose both starting corners, starting linebackers, their best edge rusher. Yeah, I don't think this defense is going to be good, but maybe that's good for Cade McCown and Devin McEwen and Amador and maybe even Jalen Smith, for the passing offense. And then
AJ Wilson.
Yeah. And then Robert High, I guess I'm assuming, is going to be the beneficiary there at running back.
Are you are we confident that Henry's not back?
I'm pretty sure. I'd say I'm 99% sure Robert Henry's not back. I'm pretty sure I looked it up, and I don't think he's not on their 2025 roster.
I'm a little skeptical of giving credence to like school photos, school videos of players working out as that like definitively meaning that they're with the program. Like, couldn't they just be training for the like?
They don't have a 2025 roster yet, so yeah. Well, I mean, like for instance, like there's 3 players that are working out with Hawaii that they're still waiting to hear about eligibility.
Yeah.
So it happens where the player still works out and doesn't, and you don't quite know what their eligibility situation is. So certainly possible.
I just found out that Joe Fagnano is back, which was surprising.
At UConn. Yeah. Well, he's listed on their roster. But the same thing, I think people were talking about. They showed him in a video, right?
Yeah.
But UConn does have a 2025 roster, and he is listed on it. But UTSA does not have a 2025 roster yet. I don't know. I think Robert Henry's out of eligibility, but in this day and age, maybe he's not.
Right, exactly.
Again, I think that they lose a lot on defense, so that's a positive for offensive production and being in shootouts. Devin McEwen, I think's in store for a bounce back year. He had he dealt with a lot of injuries last year, but I think he can bounce back and potentially be the man for UTSA. But I mean, they had guys step up in his absence. David Amador was one of those guys that kind of stepped up in his absence. Owen McCown looked great, especially when he kind of took over that job. I don't know, halfway through the season. Eddie Lee Marburger is gone, so you're not going to have to worry about him anymore. I thought Brandon Hyde Jr. looked good when he had opportunities at running back. Bryson Donnell's still there as well. So, I mean, offensively, I'm really excited about this team. It's just kind of a shame they lost so much on defense. I think that's what's going to really hold them back from really being a true contender in the American in 25.
They just seemed to score every time they had the ball. They just had this stretch where they're just scoring all the time. So it's if they can keep that up, it's okay, we just need one stop or something. So I like their chances heading into the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they will be one of the better teams in the AAC. I just don't know that they're going to have enough to compete defensively to actually win the title. I mean, I guess we could get to that point. I mean, if I'm picking my favorite, I think, to win the AAC today, I'm probably picking Navy.
Oh, I thought I was gonna be coming out of left field with that one.
Navy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know. It just feels like they feel like the safest bet, I guess.
Yeah, it's just hard to defend them and prep for them compared to other teams. I'm actually gonna say ECU takes down the championship. At least they make it there. I just feel like recruiting wise, they do pretty well. It's when you think of the MAC, you think of Toledo just always seems to get guys. That's what ECU is. For and especially defensive players, they're pretty good. Offense, we saw what they were able to do, and you've got a lot of good guys. You got quarterback play coming back because that's a big thing. It's what's our quarterback play look like? And we've seen Hauser and what he's been able to do. Got a good wide receiver core coming back. You've got some running backs that can run the ball, like you said. It could be this. Running back committee approach, but defensive wise, they're typically pretty good. So I'm gonna go with ECU there.
Oh, so Clint just told us in the chat about Robert Henry. Said that I guess Trailer announced that Robert Henry's going to get a free JUCO year and be back. So it looks like Henry's going to be back there, Andrew.
Nice. I got to jump, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Luke. I think East Carolina would be my second choice. I just don't think their defense, that there's enough defense for them to win the AAC.
Also,
but I do like them.
Also, because of that ruling, Willie McCoy is a wide receiver that he will be able to come back.
So yeah, a lot of offense coming back for UTSA. Offense, I don't think is their problem. It's going to be defense, man. If they could have returned the defense they had in 2024, I think I might have picked them as my favorite to win, but they lose so much on defense.
That's why they would be like a possible championship team for me. But like you said, there's that defense, and that's why I kind of lean ECU. And ultimately, if you want to pick Navy, I get it. It's hard to prep for them, and they'll be pretty good. They'll be pretty solid. So I'm thinking Navy ECU in the championship game. And as of right now, I'll just say ECU because I just don't want to have the same answer as you right now.
I mean, to me, the number 2 is probably between UTSA and ECU. But I think Navy's the favorite. Navy, but just like I said, hard to prep for. They return most of the offense. That they do lose some on defense, but I'm not as concerned about what Navy loses on defense as compared to say a ECU or UTSA.
A dark horse, I think, is South Florida. If Byron Brown comes back to form, they were 7-6 last year, and it was underwhelming.
Yeah, they weren't good. Yeah,
I feel like it could be a dark horse. If they end up in the championship, I would not be surprised. Even though I think maybe your average college football fan would say, "Oh, I didn't, who's this USF?" So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for us today.
For the AAC.
Yep. Next time we will probably what do we got?
Conference USA is up next.
Okay, Conference USA up next. Come back and join us next week as we continue to bring you up to date on all the latest news and happenings in the world of G5 college football. We'll be back live with you the next Monday. I know hopefully we'll get back on schedule here. We kind of messed everybody up with a Saturday night live. But that'll be February 17th, right around 10:30 p.m. Eastern, as we discuss the transfer portal and coaching changes in Conference USA. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. On X, give us a follow. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please subscribe and leave those 5-star ratings and review. Thank you all for your support. Until the next time, we up the G5 Hive.